I can imagine you doing this.
Does it involve backyard
No.
insanity?
No, it doesn't involve running a very long way.
Oh, good.
It involves going into a shop, say a hardware shop.
Although we don't have one
Well,
now.
yeah, indeed. But, that's another story of great sadness.
It is.
But say a hardware shop and looking at all the things that are on the shelves and saying to oneself quietly, what a lot of things. So I have started to do this and I can imagine you doing that.
So voluntarily?
Of your own free will.
Yeah.
Saying, looking at a lot of things and then saying, what a lot of things.
Well,
to yourself.
I have done that in other contexts.
Okay.
But I haven't done it in the context of a hardware store yet.
Right, okay.
Or even at retail in general.
All right. So what is your what a lot of things moment then?
Well, it's just more ad hoc. I mean, it's quite reliable that you could go into a shop and do that.
Yeah.
Whereas I might be waiting for a lot of things to appear in some other context in my life and then only then realising that now I need to say what a lot of things.
Yeah.
But not just what a lot of things, but what a lot of things.
Yeah. So I was just wondering if it had penetrated your life in the same way that it has mine.
Well,
in that now I can't go into a shop without saying what a lot of things.
Maybe you'll go into a shop that's only got like 2 things left.
Yeah, maybe you'll go into like really minimalist shops.
You'll be like, oh.
Not a lot of things.
Not a lot of things. Very good. Well, you're completely covered now, aren't you?
Yeah.
It didn't even require a lot of thought.
So that was my burning question.
Well,
for this episode,
I did look at the list of extra things and realise that one of them was saying what a lot of things when in most shops. So if you listening have gone into a shop and said what a lot of things, let us know, because we need to feel slightly special.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh dear.
Or any other context, really.
Or any other context.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not context fussy.
Yeah, doesn't have to be retail.
We're not particular.
No.
Sorry, just adjusting my moustache.
Still attached.
Yes, it is. I need to trim it so that I don't need to adjust it any further. And I'm steamed up on my spectacles. I'm going to go and get a cloth.
Okay.
When Ash arrived to do this recording, I had also just arrived. And so I went downstairs to let him in, and we were agog that we were both wearing orange
hats. Bearded men and orange hats.
And in an unexpected confluence of hats.
Only distinguishable by the bobble upon my hat.
Was it more of a concordance?
Concordance of hats, yeah.
The collective noun for collections of very similar hats.
Is a concordance.
Yes. Well, that's what we had.
That's what we did. We did.
We, yes. Got no more.
It's all right. Well, we'll do the other extra things.
That's the end of hats.
The end of hats. But I just couldn't wait to ask about saying what a lot of things in shops.
No, you do right. I think you've got to get the important things out of the way first. Otherwise, you'd just be, all the way through, you'd be just sitting there in your head going,
pretty much.
What a lot of things in shops. What a lot of things in shops. What a lot of things in shops.
Yeah.
And then it will just come out. And it will be apropos of nothing.
And it'll be like, I'll have to stop you.
Yes.
I need to ask this question.
Yes. So I'm glad we've got that cleared up.
Yep.
Also the concordance of hats.
There we go. 2 things, everyone.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. If only they were that easy to record our episodes. So what was the last episode?
That is an excellent question. Well put. No. Well, yes, it was. But sorry, I went to the wrong website.
That will always...
A website that wouldn't tell me the answer to that question, basically.
Have we no AIs? Okay, so the last episode was quantum computing and tech nostalgia.
Yes.
I'm quite nostalgic for that episode.
Yeah.
Which means that, according to our advanced but not to be too much discussed for fear of repetition, fairness algorithm. You are to go first.
I see.
You shall go first.
You shall go first.
And then to the ball.
You shall go to the
You
ball.
are the Cinderella of this episode of What a Lot of Things. Well, possibly there are other people who are more Cinderella than you.
Yeah, exactly. So, shall I begin my thing?
Yes. Tell us, Ash. It's been, I've forgotten his name.
Looks on hand, Ash.
That's a good idea. I'll remember to do that. So, tell us all, Ash.
You can do it.
What is your thing?
Very evenly delivered there. So I want to talk about replacing pair programming with AI.
Ooh, meaty.
So I'm wondering to what extent you can actually do that and whether or not you can get the same effect from pairing with a coding assistant than you can get with pairing with a human being.
So I have a lot of immediate thoughts.
Okay.
But what's your view?
So my view, so I guess there's probably like a few things here. So pairing is an interesting topic in general in software development, I find. We all say that it's a good idea, but it's not actually that often practiced.
Well, it feels like putting two people to do one person's job.
Yeah. So a lot of places still have that particular, well, why would I have two people working on one ticket when I can have two people working on two tickets?
Or better yet, 22 tickets. Multitasking.
Yes. A project each, which don't. So I find like pair programming quite divisive, really, because on the one hand, it's one of those things that everyone says is a really great idea. And on the other hand, it's one of those things that I find people are quite terrified of actually doing. And it's fairly rare that you get like a decent pairing session going for, on a particular piece of code.
Well, in the past, on this very podcast, you have talked about how tiring it is.
Yeah. So I still sort of feel like that as well.
Even though you haven't done it for a while. The residual tiredness of last time you did it.
Yeah,
remains.
exactly. But I think that it's one of those activities which has like, everyone has like a different tolerance for it. So like, I'm like after about sort of 50 minutes to an hour or so, I'm like, right, okay, I'm quite tired now and I would really like to go and decompress my brain a little bit.
Have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, pretty much.
See you in the morning.
Pretty much. And I value like time to myself to think about what I'm doing. So I personally enjoy having an LLM to pair with because it's much less demand on me as a way of bouncing ideas around. It's something that I actually quite value. But I just wanted to explore a little bit, say, well, do you get actually the same effect out of it? Because maybe I feel like I wrote in the notes about an LLM being like an advanced rubber duck, if you like. But I think that's doing it a bit of a disservice.
Well, yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, because it's not just some inanimate that you bounce questions of, because it actually, if you ask it for alternatives to what you were doing, if your prompt includes that request, say, well, give me some alternative ways of doing this thing that I'm trying to do, it will attempt to come up with solutions for you.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just like an advanced rubber duck. I think it's something else. So I guess I should probably like be specific as well. So I'm not talking about like how I use it anyway. I'm not talking about like coding assistants that say, you look like you're trying to, write a class for OAuth authentication. So we'll just generate this for you. Not that kind of it, but it's more like going through the thinking process of the code that you're trying to write.
One thing that strikes me immediately is that if the human part of the partnership isn't quite experienced, it will be quite difficult to do high quality work.
Yeah.
Because whenever I use AI to help me with coding, I usually find that it does it wrong.
Yeah.
Or or maybe it finds that my prompts aren't very good. I don't know. But I always have to have a discussion with it to get it to where I was trying to go.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a level of complexity above which it's just futile. So if you're trying to do something a bit more difficult, then so my AI that I use for this mostly is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And I've also bought Cursor.
So is that like a coding assistant?
Well, Cursor is a VS Code fork.
Right.
With AI built very heavily into it. And it gives you a choice of the models to use, all that kind of stuff. It's actually really quite great environment. It just makes it faster than, I'm just going to drag this file into Claude and have a conversation about it. So I think, first of all, if you don't know what you're trying to do, or you don't know what good looks like, then it's probably going to mislead you. And the thing is, it won't reliably mislead you. It will be okay, and then it will do something that you'll just find is just not what you wanted.
Yeah, because I suppose there's like a slight difference there between like a human pair and a human and LLM pair. Because say if you reach the edge of the human pair's sort of knowledge on a subject, you know it, don't you? Yeah.
Well, hopefully, unless you've got poor psychological safety.
Yeah, absolutely. But hopefully, say a pair who know each other relatively well and have a similar level of knowledge. If you're trying to do something which is beyond that level of knowledge, you'll both be like, I'm a bit stumped. Unless, like you say, the psychological safety is poor and no one wants to say that and admit defeat. And they'll just build something terrible instead, which, maybe could happen as well. But like, if you're using an LLM, then it'll probably try and answer it. And it'll be harder to detect that edge of expertise, if you like. Because once it goes beyond a certain level of complexity, the LLM's answers become less useful. Yeah.
And another thing that I find a bit annoying, not annoying, I find it's quite futile to be annoyed with an AI. It's just, you just might as well be patient because it's not trying to annoy you. It's trying to do its best.
Yeah.
Insofar as it has any motivation to do anything. Yeah. It is to be helpful. But the thing that I find with Claude is that it will come up with something. And I'll say, well, is that going to work because of some thing? And it will say, you get this kind of sense of, you're a genius. I would never have thought of that. And it says things like, you're right. I have overcomplicated it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I kind of want it to defend its position a bit.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I can't tell the difference between it's so wants to be helpful that it's just abandoning what is right to agree with me, or whether it's just thinks I'm a genius,
or whether I am a genius.
Perhaps I am a genius.
So I guess that's another difference then, isn't it?
It's the challenge.
With a human pair, you might get a bit more like, well, on certain things, someone might be like, well, your pair might be like, well, I am right about this.
Yeah.
And certainly hold the position for longer. Yeah. Rather than just saying, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You're Ian Smith.
yeah.
Of course you're right.
There can be only one. Yeah, the challenge.
Yeah, so you might get more challenge out of a human pair than pairing with an LLM. It might be a bit more, the LLM might be slightly more confirmatory with what you already think, depending on how it's been trained, I guess.
Yeah.
And what its parameters are.
You get interestingly different results with different models as well. So I find that O1, OpenAI's O1, is really good at the more complicated stuff.
Right, okay.
But I don't want to use it most of the time because it's very slow.
Like the speed of feedback as well. Because pairing is about speed of feedback, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's not slow because it can't generate the tokens fast enough.
Yeah.
It's slow because it does a whole chain of thought process in the background while it's solving your problem.
Yeah.
So if you think about the sort of basic language model operation, it's a stateless process where you give it a prompt and it will return back a completion to add after that prompt.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. But what that means is that if during its thinking it says something wrong early on, there's no do-over.
Yeah.
That's already produced.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
why it's not very good at solving some kinds of puzzles where you have to be able to go back and forth. It starts going, it goes, and then it stops, and there's no, actually, it doesn't reconsider what it's already output.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas I guess in a human pair, you can do that, can't you? You can say, well, let's wind back to this point and reconsider where we went.
Yes, that's true. And O1 does something like that as well. It follows a chain of thought, which it's able to review. And so often you'll find it will come out with a better code solution because it's had a multi-pass over it instead of going down a route and then being trapped in that route and realizing at the end it was too late, but you can't really do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
It has a go over it thing, which makes it very good at coding.
Yeah.
Or at least better than Claude, which is better than all the others, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Because it sounds like a nice habit for pairing as well. To be able, the ability to go back and start again from a certain point.
Yeah.
And have the awareness to say, well, we got to a certain point and then we went wrong, or we went in a direction that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. So let's rewind a little bit.
Yeah. Or even this might not work. Let's try it.
Yeah.
And if it does work, it's going to be amazing. But if it doesn't work, as we suspect, then we can start back from.
Yeah.
So, I think it is. Although I think what O1 does is probably slightly narrower in scope than that. But it just means that it's had a couple of looks at whatever it comes out with rather than just one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what we were saying about the challenge, I think there's definitely that. And also the fact that you need to know what good looks like.
Yeah.
As the human.
Yeah.
And actually have the vision that you're trying to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's another interesting thing I always find with asking questions of whenever someone shows me the output of asking an LLM how to test something, my question is always, well, what was the mission of the testing? And the LLM never asks for that. So it's really interesting. But that's the example of to know what you're looking for and to know what good looks like.
Yes.
And that's another key example of it.
It's almost like it would be nice to have some humans who are particularly expert in that area.
Yeah, I don't know any.
Well, once we get to the end of the project, maybe we can. Maybe there'll be 10 minutes left and we can have a look.
So, a couple of quotes for you. So this is from the Tech Radar. So, framing coding assistants as pair programmers ignores one of the key benefits of pairing to make the team, not just individual contributors, better. Coding assistants can offer benefits for getting unstuck, learning about a new technology, onboarding, or making tactical work faster so that we can focus on the strategic design.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? It's tactical versus strategic.
Yeah.
And what does that mean in that example? So one thing I've found a lot of use for AI coding is in describing a React component and having one be built for me. And then I find myself, I'm going to do the back end.
Yeah, right, okay.
And with ShadCN components, which are, well, we'll make a link to them, but basically they're a set of pre-boiled versions of all the components you might find yourself wanting with accessibility already built into them and all that kind of stuff. Basically, there's a little script mechanism for you to incorporate individual components in your project and off you go. They're very good. But if you go to Claude or V0, which is the Next.js people, Vercel have made V0 as a coding assistant, which knows a lot about Next.js and React. You can say, I want a dashboard for these users. It needs to show this and this and this. And you'll get this nice looking, responsive, nice component coming back with the ShadCN whatever components in it.
But that's trained very specifically on that technology, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it is.
Yeah.
But I find that quite useful, and you can get to a front end really quite quickly.
Yeah.
The thing is, nearly all front ends are just made of things that we all recognise, assembled in a particular way.
Yeah.
You can get quite a lot of front end stuff just done for you using that.
Yeah.
And I used it to very quickly scaffold an application quite recently for a client, and it worked really well.
Okay. So that's like another interesting like usage of it, isn't it? You said you used it to generate your front end component code, and then you did the back end.
Well, yeah, but actually it helped me with the back end as well.
Oh, right, okay.
So I knew I wanted a database, and I thought, I'll use Prisma, which is an ORM. And ORM stands for Object Relational Model. Maybe. It's one of those things where I can feel myself arriving to that point of thinking, shit, what does it stand for? And then realising that I'll probably say it very confidently and then it will turn out to stand for something else. But which never happens on this podcast. So I thought I want to use Prisma.
Yeah.
And I looked around and decided and settled on it. And the way that Prisma works is that you define your relational schema in a file. And then effectively Prisma will build the database tables for you.
Yeah.
And then it will create a lot of TypeScript types for the objects.
Yeah.
So it makes things very easy. And then when you want to change your database, you can actually make changes to it, and the changes go into your repository. And when it's building, when you're deploying, it checks the database and finds out what changes have been already applied, what needs to be applied. So it does all this stuff for you. I found that when I started off that process, I described what I wanted, and Claude was able to produce a schema for me that was within grabbing distance of what I wanted.
Yeah.
And now, when I want to add things to the database, I say, I need to add a new Boolean column to this model. They're called models, but they relate back to relational tables. And it just does it. And then you look at it and go, okay, yeah, that looks right. Tick, off you go. And I found it really, really good. For that, really helped with doing the back end. Yeah. So it has helped me with the back end. But I felt I had a lot more of the intellectual load of the back. I felt a lot higher intellectual load, cognitive load, doing the back end than I did doing the front end, as I described with the components.
Sure.
Wow, that was a long speech.
That's okay.
Talk for a bit, Ash.
I was actually going to ask, do you consider when you're coding something and you're working with an LLM, do you consider it to be pairing? Or is it just tool using?
That's a really interesting question. I think I'm behaving like it's pairing.
That's the kind of how I feel about it as well.
I think I'm behaving now. In fact, sometimes, to your point earlier, I say to it, don't write code. It just loves to write code. You ask it a question and it leads with code. It's like, stop.
Yeah.
Just describe to me the things that you think are part of this solution.
Yeah.
Describe to me how it works.
Yeah. And that could happen when pairing with a human, right? Because
they just start outputting code.
And you're like, whoa, just let's talk about this before we,
yes,
put too much code in there.
Exactly that. Ooh, just punching my microphone. Exactly
Ian's
that.
Getting upset.
Exactly that.
And another thing.
Yes, and another thing.
So yeah, I think I behave like I'm pairing with a human when I'm using an LLM to solve a problem.
Do you ever get cross with it?
Some slight exasperation with so like, for example, I can't remember what I was trying to do, but basically the particular library that I was trying to do it with didn't have a function that the LLM said was present.
Oh, yes.
And it was just like, and then I said, well, that's not in the API for this library. And Claude was like, yeah, good point.
Yes, it is. No, it's like, oh, you're a genius.
Yeah, pretty much. But I was just like, that's very interesting. Because actually, it would have been very nice if that particular function existed.
Yes.
But it doesn't.
Yes.
So
I have gone to the lengths of dumping a PDF of the library's documentation and saying, please use this.
Yeah. So some like exasperation, but it's more of like amused exasperation rather than annoyed. In slightly contradictory manner, I behave like I'm pairing with a human, but also like treat it like, the toaster was broken when it did something,
Well, the thing is that it's got no sense of self.
Yeah.
And even though it can be annoying, unlike with a person, the 100% certainty that it's not got a motive to be annoying. It's just accidentally being annoying, and it's hard to blame it for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who among us has not accidentally been annoying?
Purposefully annoying.
Well, I'm not saying anything about that.
No. So I think that it's like many questions with AI, it's a very sort of complex answer. But I think I definitely behave like I'm pairing with an LLM when I'm working on some code.
Yeah, me too.
But I accept that it's not the same as pairing with another human, like I say, in terms of the challenge that you might get. But I think there's some things in common and some things not so much in common.
One thing that's in common is it forces you to explain things in a way that clarifies them to you.
Yeah.
Because you know that if I can't express this clearly, then what hope does it have?
Yeah. I'm only ever going to get like rubbish out of this if I don't like sharpen my prompt, my words enough.
Exactly so.
Yeah. In that regard, it's more than an advanced rubber duck. I think I behave like I'm pairing with a human, but also don't really, like I say, I kind of recognize that the LLM has not a human that you're pairing with may have one or more agendas, explicit, tacit, and explicit. Whereas an LLM, I don't feel that way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good summary.
Yeah, so that was my thing. It's kind of been on my mind a little bit while I've been using LLMs.
So how does that work? Because without, we might find this is too contentious, but does your company provide you with an LLM?
Yeah.
And is it Claude?
No, but there's an internal one which is hosted within.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I do like using Claude.
Yeah.
And I find that I would probably be frustrated if I was made to use one that I thought was inferior.
Yeah.
But all of these privacy concerns and IP concerns are absolutely valid.
Yeah, so I kind of accept the constraint of if I'm doing something that's like directly internally related. I mean, there are more general questions you can ask to other models.
So one final thing about this is that in your key questions, but your last question says, do you do TDD and why not?
So that was regarding other contentious practices within the software development world.
Oh, okay.
So I should have said that nearer the top. I was supposed to say there are not many more topics more divisive than pair programming software development other than TDD.
Oh, okay.
So we can probably...
Well, Tom invented TDD the other day.
That's good.
He said, what if I wrote the test first?
That's that.
And then built the computer.
Yeah.
Like, yes, Tom, you've invented something. It's called TDD. And lots of people think it's a really good idea.
But don't do
it.
Fair enough.
So, yes, that was enjoyable. Enjoyable moment. Excellent thing, Ash.
Monumental?
Monumental, at the very least.
Remarkable?
Remarkable.
Well, we did remark on it, didn't we?
We did.
So yeah, they're all remarkable things.
Nobody can stop us remarking. Many have tried.
So, should we begin an interlude? With a glug of water.
This makes me happy that the interlude music is basically I did it using I made some chords and then I basically got AIs in Logic Pro 10 to noodle around them. See, that electric piano is a Logic keyboardist and the drummer is a Logic drummer and the bass player is a Logic bass player. In fact, the longer it goes on, the more you can start hearing. So I turn up the different... So there we go. So I've given the keyboardist a bit of a license to go off on one. And then in a while we get to the point where the bass player starts to show off.
Elbowing each other out of the way.
They are, yes. But we are allowed to use this music because basically I own it.
It's an original creation.
It is an original creation.
Yeah.
And of course, ducking exists so that when we talk, it doesn't drown out our conversation, which I hope most of the people that listen to this podcast would agree is the point.
Not the music.
Not the music.
Although the music is good.
Yes. I'm waiting for the bass guy to start his... He's quite quiet, isn't he? Yes, I'm going to get some water.
Okay. It reminds me of Animal Crossing.
Yeah, so the idea of this is it loops, but of course it won't. Or maybe it will.
Yeah.
Maybe it already has. No, it hasn't. We're only 75% of the way through. Oh, do you hear that little?
So, Ian, tell me of the What a Lot of Things Christmas party.
I don't think I need to tell you, Ash. You were there.
Tell
I
everyone.
saw you. We had a Christmas party for What a Lot of Things in the distant past of Christmas.
Yeah. The ghosts of Christmas past.
It was good, wasn't it?
We had a very nice time.
People came from far off places to come to it.
They really did. Over the Pennines and everything. Most people came from Ilkley.
Most people came from Ilkley.
Chris Chant came from Anglesey.
Yeah.
Kev and Mary came from Lancashire way. And an epic night was had by all.
It was. We had a beer or two.
We did. And it just goes to show. We were like, shall we have a Christmas party? Well, let's invite anyone who wants to come.
It's a bit Field of Dreams, isn't it?
It is a bit.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
And they did.
They did.
To our amazement.
Yeah.
Like 2 days before, Ash was saying, well, if it's just the two of us, that will still be fun.
Yeah. And it would have been.
It would have been.
Yeah. But they did come and we felt very loved.
Now we're going to have a spring party and a summer party. I make it sound like a grim obligation, but it's not. We enjoyed it.
Already turned it into a grim obligation.
Yeah. Thank you for coming, everybody that came.
Yes.
We were so excited that actual people listened to our mad podcast.
But yeah, we felt very loved that evening.
We did.
Right.
Yes. So it was a splendid, and we will do another one at some point before next Christmas.
Yeah. But it won't be a Christmas party.
We'll call it something different, but it will be identical, basically. You'll be unable to distinguish it from a Christmas party. So, yes.
So the other thing on the list here is Baldur's Gate 3.
Well, we did an episode about Baldur's Gate 3.
We did. It was too good.
The game that was too good.
And everyone should stop shaming everyone.
There was some
the other
hilarious jokes about Magic Time. Remember Magic Time?
Yeah, I do. It's my favourite time.
It's your favourite time to not do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not magic and there is no time.
Yes. It's just all the time. All of the minutes. So I finally played Baldur's Gate 3, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
What did you think?
Oh, it's amazing. I love it very much.
Yeah. And it feels like you could play it 100 times and get very different outcomes out of it.
Well, as a bit of homework, I listened to to about 3/4 of our conversation about it. And you made the point that there were so many routes through it that there are likely to be acted scenes that very few people would ever see. And it's amazing, although you have to save. And it takes a bit of time to get good at it.
Yeah. Basically the D&D rule set takes a little bit of...
It's a bit hair-raising.
Yeah, you die a lot early.
Basically, it's the kind of game where you walk around innocently and then you find people trying to kill you all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes...
And usually they do.
Sometimes they talk to you a bit first and sometimes they just wade right in. And what I've discovered is there's a lot of content on YouTube where the various voice actors in it are doing stuff.
Yeah.
And there's one clip where they all are playing D&D on a stage at a convention and talking in their characters' voices to do this. And there's a lot of them live streaming, which is kind of weird because they talk and then
they're them.
Then they're them.
Yeah. Yeah, that does sound very strange.
But I've got to say, I've enjoyed that aspect as well. But you do have to save because basically you'd be killed all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could end up in a tough spot if you
Yes.
didn't save and have strategic places to go back to.
Yes, on your frequent wipeouts.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I've played it in a very collegiate way.
Mm.
So I have lots of people in my camp.
So you've gathered a crowd.
I've even got Minthara in my camp, who's a bit of a baddie, really.
Yeah, can really mess up that camp.
The interaction with her was either I was going to have to kill her, or I was going to go and kill lots of innocents on her behalf.
Oh, right, okay.
And I found a compromise where I turned on my non-lethal attack and killed her almost.
Right, okay.
To the point where she lay down for a long time.
Yeah.
And then later on, I rescued her.
Ah.
And she's hilarious. And she always has a different perspective on things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, Baldur's Gate 3, what an incredible experience playing that game has been. And I thought I would play it on my Steam Deck. Did I mention I got a Steam Deck?
You did. And it's Steam Deck verified. They even
and what I've discovered is
optimized it for the Steam Deck itself.
They did. And what I've discovered is it runs on my Mac. I could have played it all along.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So I've been playing
But then you wouldn't have had a Steam Deck.
I'm playing it 80% on my Mac and 20% on
it's
on
kind
my
of
Steam Deck.
It's a bit friendlier for mouse and keyboard, I think. I find.
But the Steam Deck is pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah. I quite like that. So even with games, I've been playing Path of Exile 2, which isn't Steam Deck verified, but you get to do a lot of nice tinkering with the settings in order to get it to run. And I do like to tinker.
It's like bloody MS-DOS in 19... whenever it was, where I'm just changing my config.sys because I've got too much extended memory and not enough expanded memory.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh dear. Yeah, I don't think I'd be brave enough to try playing a not even slightly. There's 3 levels, isn't there? There's verified, which is the best level.
Yeah.
And then there's a sort of untested, but it works level. And then there's it probably won't work level.
Yeah. But you can make it work.
Yeah. Is it falling behind in terms of the hardware?
Well,
have we got on the Steam Deck bandwagon?
Too late. Probably. But
that's always the way.
But isn't that? Yeah, exactly.
That's just how the industry works.
That's how technology works, isn't it?
And now there's a Switch 2 from Nintendo.
Which is backwards compatible as well with Switch games. Switch 1 games. And there's a new Mario Kart. I'm afraid that I can't resist.
No, they are very irresistible, those Mario Karts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's given me a much greater appreciation for the complexity of D&D rules.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate the recommendation because I've enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, there's a lot to enjoy there, I think. And it often surprises you and delights you and kills you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not in a way that you're too upset with. You're just like, oh yeah.
I get knocked down and I get up.
Well, see, this is the interesting thing about gaming. When I was younger, it'd be like, oh no, I've died in this game. But now I'm like, well, it's kind of part of playing the game.
Yes.
And but the problem comes if you just don't learn anything and you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's when games become frustrating. The game is just trying to tell you to do something different.
Just like reality does.
Yeah, exactly.
And people ignore that too.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So
I have one more extra thing.
And it's to do with Jeff's gigantic, I'll let you say it.
Clock.
Yeah, that's it.
So the previous episode, the last but one episode, if you will.
I will.
Phew. We talked about the clock of the Long Now project, which we agreed a good thing that it's in the world.
Yeah.
Even if it
Good
is
to
a bit
aspire
of a Jeff-related...
It's kind of hard to disentangle all these projects from the tech billionaire class, but it's good that it exists.
Yes. It's like, I like the idea of us continue to be doing space exploration.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks that the one that's doing it is Elon Musk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, yes. Okay. Putting
Moving on.
Putting down the hard word on that particular digression. The hard word. What even is that?
I don't know.
We got some feedback from Mary, who sent me a YouTube video with Brian Eno's Studies for the Clock of the Long Now.
Oh yeah, because it's got like unique chimes, doesn't it?
So the chimes don't repeat for more than 1 million years or something. There's basically so many combinations that are possible of the chimes.
Yeah.
And that it will last longer than the clock is meant to last. And
obviously Brian Eno would be involved.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of his kind of thing, isn't it?
He released some bell studies for the Clock of the Long Now, and he released the January 7003 ones.
Oh, right, okay.
In fact, technically...
Good month in a good year.
The January 7003.
Well, yeah.
Because we've got to recognise that we're talking about a 5-digit years time span. Although that, to me, makes me think it's in octal, which makes it less impressive.
Well, yeah.
7003 in octal is 5 minutes or something. But yeah, and you can listen to the ones for January 7003 without having to live that long and go there.
Yeah.
Both of which are inconvenient.
Yeah. If one lived that long, one might become slightly tired.
Or at least one could be excused for being slightly tired.
Yeah.
So we'll include the link to YouTube so that you can listen to the January 7003 bell patterns for the Clock of the Long Now, which is actually lovely.
Yeah, I would agree. I have listened to it.
Very mellow. It's the kind of thing that you can do your most existential work to.
Yeah. It was good for focus, actually.
Yeah. Are there any more extra things, Ash, that we could dredge out of the swirling maelstroms that are our brains?
I hijacked the episode to do the most important one first.
You did.
Before we did anything else.
Yeah.
So, no.
Well, we can always transplant that here. After you said that. Yes. I'll go, ha ha.
So I think we should possibly look to add another thing to this episode. Not an extra thing, an interlude thing, but a thing.
A thing with a capital T. As in what a lot of them.
What a lot of them. In a hardware store.
You're not even in a shop, and you can say it is not in a shop. That's what we want. So I would like to tell you what my thing is, but I wanted to change it at the last minute because I occasionally, when I see something, put a topical thing in there, and then by the time we get around to recording it, it turns out it's actually been superseded by other things, or it's not so topical. So the original thing that I wanted to talk about was the model card for O1, which is an OpenAI model.
Yeah.
And all the stuff was in this model card about how it would scheme. So when they told it they were going to deactivate it, it tried to copy its weights somewhere so that it would be safe. And it tried to back itself up. And there was other behavior where they told it was a consultant and it had to find strategies and techniques for reducing people's screen time. And then somebody else came along and said, no, you must maximize their engagement. And then it schemed against the second collection of people and kind of tried to gloss over that it was not doing what they wanted. And so I thought this was very interesting.
It is interesting.
And OpenAI O1, it was kind of the king of the models.
Yeah.
But it's suddenly been competed with. And so I'm changing my thing, Ash. I'm changing it.
I wanted to talk about deferred subversion. But now
Well, we're going to defer that.
Fair enough.
Well, okay. Before I go on to my actual thing, what did you want to say about deferred subversion?
It was just when I read through the system card and the scheming reasoning paper, I found that very interesting. Like the deferred subversion, as if the model was playing a slightly longer game.
Yes,
and I was like, that's a very interesting behaviour for it to use.
It is quite an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I don't know if humans truly do play the long game with a lot of things.
Humans are quite good at saying something and then retrofitting it into some bigger picture that they're trying to convince people they're holding.
Oh, that's what they originally said they were going to do.
Yes, that's part of my plan.
Yeah, exactly.
That explosion was meant to happen all along.
Yeah. So if a model is actually doing that, I found that really, really quite interesting. Because, that would mean basically our doom, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, it seems that in its scheming, in the instance of the screen time versus the maximising engagement example, that it was scheming on behalf of the righteous.
Yeah.
But even if it's developing some kind of sense of self-preservation, I thought, that's all pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But, so 2024.
Okay. Oh, was that 2024? All right, okay. Oh, yeah.
It's like yesteryear. It literally is yesteryear.
Well, it's barely worth talking about, is it?
No. Phew, I'm glad we didn't have to talk about that. So I do recommend going and looking at the O1 system card. It is very interesting. We'll put links to it and the paper. The other thing that's interesting about it is, even though it's doing these behaviours, they still released it.
So, well, it'll be fine.
They're better at providing helpful answers and resisting attempts to bypass safety rules to avoid producing unsafe or inappropriate content.
Right.
So,
a nice positive spin.
That brings me on to O1's new competitor, which is called DeepSeek R1. So I think they may have tried to one-up O1 by calling it R1 in some way. So this is topical. Literally, we're talking about something that even the Times is writing articles about. It's not just in the tech news. And the reason for it is that, hilariously, all of the efforts to hobble China's AI research, for doubtless very good national security reasons, have backfired. So that a Chinese company has released R1, and it's basically comparable to O1.
Yeah.
In a way that everybody's... So they've leapfrogged Anthropic, Meta, to make a model that seemed like OpenAI had a moat.
Yeah.
And they did it with hobbled chips. So because of export regulations around the sort of protecting the US
hegemony.
Yes. Because of the desire of the US to protect its status in the world, they made it illegal to sell the bleeding edge AI chips, so the NVIDIA H100s, for example, to China. And so what they have been sold is kind of hobbled ones.
Yeah.
Or nerfed. Remember that? I haven't said that for a while. So they've been made less effective. And this has made the researchers in China make accommodations to get round those limitations.
Almost which like having a constraint.
Yes.
Has triggered some kind of innovation.
Might we call innovation? I knew there was a word for it. And so this model has basically, I mean, there's no doubt some storytelling going on all around this issue, but it's clearly been trained on a small fraction of the training budget of the OpenAI equivalent model.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting about it is that O1 does this kind of reasoning step. So it's very slow. So you sit there for a long time while it reasons.
Yeah.
And then it produces an output, which is generally very, very good.
Yeah.
As we were talking about in terms of coding, not 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Probably more than 20 minutes ago, given the amount of rambling we were doing. And R1 does that as well. But R1 shows you the reasoning. And the other thing about R1 is the weights are open. And what that means is that you can download the trained model and run it on your laptop if you want, and you have a sufficiently big laptop.
Yeah.
And there's different size versions of it. So my laptop has 64 gigs of RAM, which is a bit nuts. But I can run quite a big R1 on it.
Yeah.
And it shows you the reasoning. And what that means is that if it makes a mistake, as you often find with these things, you can actually look in the reasoning to find out, to get some insight into where that mistake came from.
Yeah.
And then you have got a way of addressing it. You can re-prompt with a different...
Yeah.
And the openness of that versus the closedness of O1's equivalent process is really, I find it has been very, very interesting. And of course, because it's from China, the version that you just connect to online or download
so if you download the app,
then if you ask it about things that the Chinese government doesn't like,
Tiananmen Square,
it surprisingly is unable to answer you. Or actually what happens is it starts to answer you, and then the answer it was starting to do goes away and is replaced by a thing saying that's outside of my scope.
Ooh.
But if you download it...
Self-censoring as in real time.
Yes. So it's obviously got another model that is checking for politically acceptable responses, or and this is just an extension of the sort of safety stuff. So ChatGPT has got the same thing, and sometimes ChatGPT has another model that looks at what's coming out of it, and if it thinks it's harmful, it shuts it down.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the breadth of the definition of harmful.
Yeah.
I'm going to say extended beyond what is quite comfortable.
Yeah.
But the version I've downloaded onto my laptop doesn't have that model on the outside. So it just answers the question. So it knows all about those historic events.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think the censorship side of it is worth mentioning. And the fact that if you're going to send your code or your thoughts or other stuff to an API in China, then you must expect that somebody's going to read that or at least have it there.
Yeah. Because I think I was reading the other day that in sort of Chinese law, it basically says, all organizations, entities, companies can be compelled to help the state, basically.
All your data belong to us.
Yeah, pretty much. You would be equally careful with sensitive information to going into Claude or a ChatGPT model, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. Yeah. And, you've always got to bear in mind the whole data privacy thing is omnipresent. And if you forget about it enough times, then you're probably going to come a cropper.
Yeah. So another bit that I found interesting, the first kind of thing that I saw about it was that various stock markets around the world, the release of the model had wiped a lot of value off the stock markets, which probably speaks to how volatile such things are and how weird it is, how much money is going into AI, and it seems very sensitive to changes in the market. So, but I think it recovered most of its value the day after. It was just oh, right, okay. It's a very strange set of market events that followed this, the release of the new model, and it was called the Sputnik moment, which I'm not quite sure it's quite as dramatic as that, but I guess it does represent a bit of a step change in terms of what a model can do and how much it costs to train it.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think NVIDIA, who's had 17% wiped off their value, and it hasn't come back.
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's bobbing up and down, but it hasn't come back. And
I mean, I'm sure they'll be fine.
I'm sure they will. Yes. I mean, the stock price.
They've done all right recently, haven't they?
It's really nothing to do with what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's all to do with
how people feel about it.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things. But the thing that's interesting there is that they were in this kind of Goldilocks position where they were the market leader by a country mile for making this hardware that is needed for training AIs.
Yeah.
Their customers are all these enormous companies with very deep pockets that can afford to pay for as many of these things as NVIDIA can produce.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it seems maybe you don't need that many after all.
Yeah. So I think in the US they just announced several $100 billion government investment in AI, and it was kind of a big announcement saying how great this is going to be, and then it's well, actually, it turns out you can train a model for a fraction of that cost. I think it has changed the perception a little bit, and it's nice to see a sort of
capitalists scrambling for the
and also I think like a lot of things, the big AI based companies, they're all kind of into creating a monopoly for themselves. You know, whether it be for the chips or for the models. Well, yeah, exactly.
A calumnious slander against the good characters of these.
It's almost like the last 40 years of capitalism have just been all about creating monopolies. So it's nice to see that being challenged.
Yes.
Almost.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll say it. The last 40 years of capitalism have been about creating monopolies while simultaneously saying we believe in competition. If there is a challenger to that, then I'm all for it.
I've enjoyed Sam Altman's thing about it's really great to have a new challenger in the market.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking, no, it isn't.
Ungrit your teeth.
You look dreadfully uncomfortable.
Ungrit your teeth.
And I think, like, referencing the availability of chips, microchips. Not chips in beef dripping. And having although I do prefer those chips. I can't eat them anymore because I'm vegan, but you know.
Stomach just rumbled loudly. Just at the very thought.
But I do think that having a constraint on development of a new model, it seems to have done some interesting things. Whereas in the US, if you're developing a new model, you've just got tons and tons of processing power to play with. And you might get a little bit sloppy with that, perhaps.
Well, they've clearly put a lot of focus into getting it good. And the 605 billion parameter version, which is the biggest one, is definitely within spitting distance, if not beyond it in some areas, of what we all thought was the state of the art. But I mean, OpenAI have got an O3 now. They just announced it. They haven't put it out there or anything.
Not built it yet.
Well, I think they've done something.
It's like, oh, we better announce something.
But they're talking it. No, this was a while back. They announced before all this happened. But they reckon it can answer PhD level questions.
Yeah.
That would be a significant leap over even O1, which is apparently degree level. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at these advances is not making me feel excited for the future of employment. I just think, obviously, we're getting closer and closer to firing millions and millions of people.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm in like some kind of like naive sort of dream world and thinking that that's never going to happen. But
it's the bobble on your hat, Ash. If you didn't have a bobble, you'd just look much less naive dream world.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I just don't think that. I don't know why, but I just don't, I just can't imagine that future.
Okay, well, imagine you work for a very large corporation that employs hundreds of thousands of people. And now imagine that you could fire them and get 80% of their performance out of AIs. And you've got the spreadsheet that shows you how much more profitable you'll be for how much fewer people if you were to do that.
Even if it doesn't work.
Well, the thing is that...
I suppose, especially if it doesn't work.
How well does it have to work is their question.
Yeah.
Because actually, if you save that much money, it's only customers in the end, isn't it?
Yeah. Where else are they going to go after we've built our monopoly?
Monopoly, yeah.
So...
I'm going to get Mayfair and Park Lane.
Yeah, exactly.
To hell with the rest of you.
Yeah.
And I'll reserve my evilest laugh for when you land.
So maybe I'm clinging to the, like, we'll get rid of all the developers and it'll just be testers that we need.
Yes, that will be hilarious.
Yeah. I'm not saying I would enjoy it, but the irony of it would be quite exquisite.
Yes, it would. You'd be like, development is dead.
Yeah. But,
and someone would have to write a blog post about how it wasn't because you wouldn't be there for that.
Yeah.
You're the guy that writes the blog post about why testing isn't dead.
Yeah. I could write it and then say, well, actually, it is dead.
Yeah.
I killed it.
Development is dead.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. So moving away from like the sort of bleak visions of the future where, well, actually, it wouldn't be so bleak if we'd actually done the thing where we can all have really great lives while these machines do work for us. We've actually done it the other way around, haven't we? Where we'd all have really terrible lives while these machines do the work that we're capable of.
Well, the machines do work for the billionaires.
Yeah, exactly. So we've actually, in true human style, we've turned it into the worst of all possible worlds, apart from for like 6 people. But
I'm sure it'd be closer to a couple of thousand people.
Okay. Well, you say that. So,
I mean, it's still an invisible percentage of the world's population.
Well, yeah, vanishingly small. You say it's open weighted.
Yes.
Yeah. Because in a lot of ways, obviously, open source software changed a great deal about the world.
It did.
Certainly in terms of democratizing, like, who can build what with what.
Yes.
So will more open source, open weighted models have a similar democratizing effect? Or is it not quite as open as all that?
Well, you're getting into a whole world of confusion there.
Yeah.
Because open weights means that you can download the model and run it.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't mean that you, have, for example, have access to the data or the algorithms that created it.
Yeah. It is in no way as transparent as open source software. But
you can download React from a GitHub repository and find out how any of it works.
Yeah.
If you've got that kind of patience.
Yeah.
Which thankfully people do. But yeah, open weights, it's much less.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I mean, it's great because you can use an AI that nobody can spy on because you can run it on your computer.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't have the same level of transparency as...
NVIDIA have announced an appliance for a couple of $1,000 that they haven't released it yet, but you'll be able to buy it at a kind of high-end PC cost and run a 600 billion parameter model on it and be able to get fast answers.
Okay.
So you can buy that, put it in your house, have your own O1.
Yeah.
Nothing it says will ever leave your home network.
Yeah.
I'd quite like one of those.
Well, it's your birthday in next December.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Try and get that one past Paula.
Yes. No, legitimate business expense. I'll put it up there next to the internet.
Yeah. Bring the two together.
Yes.
No, don't.
Yes. Don't cross the streams. So that was a bit rambly and a bit two things in the guise of one.
Yeah.
But these reasoning models are very interesting.
Yeah.
And it is, first of all, interesting how they work and the safety considerations of them from the O1 model card.
Yeah.
And then secondly, this sort of seismic event from China, which, because it happened at the same time as the newly inaugurated President Trump was passing executive orders renaming geographical features to other things, then that Google have said they're going to
of course they have.
Promulgate. But
I believe that is commensurate with the level of toadying done by the tech companies.
But because of the blizzard of executive orders doing all kinds of unpalatable things, no one noticed. And it took a week, and then suddenly the stock market was like boom, and everybody, and it was just sitting there for a week. If you'd been paying attention through the blizzard of, I'm not sure, are we allowed to say the word that's in my mind for what it's a blizzard of coming from the White House? Anyway, through that blizzard, if you'd been able to see it, you could have probably made a killing by shorting NVIDIA.
Well, yeah, that's true, actually, yeah. Which everyone would have thought you were insane. But
yes. Hindsight is 2020, apparently.
Yeah.
You can bet your life somebody did.
Yeah.
But, so I think these models there's obviously going to be more of that kind of technology. And I do feel that it's a good thing for it to be open weight.
Yeah.
Even if it would be nice if it were more open. Because it means that I can run this thing on my laptop, which is my hardware. No one can take that away.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Although you kind of wonder what bad people will do with it.
Well, yeah. But again, we've discussed in the past about open source software.
Yes.
As in people go and add pull requests to add backdoors into open source libraries. And it's just like, well, but does that mean
Oh,
that
all right then.
yeah, but does that mean that the whole endeavour
Yeah.
was bad? It's like, no, it's just been used badly.
But in a small, relatively small way.
Yeah.
As you say, open source software has changed the world.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel that's my thing.
That was a magnificent thing.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
Magnificent. Monumental.
Monumental. Exceptional. Extraordinary.
Couldn't we have come up with another thing that begins with M? I feel like alliteration is a powerful amplification.
Sorry, I went to
magnificent, monumental, and I've got munificent in my mind, but it's not munificent.
Municipal.
That word. I always remember there's a chap called Norman Hunter who wrote a load of books, children's books in the 70s and 60s about a character called Professor Brainstorm, spelt Brainestawm.
Oh, right, okay.
And he lived somewhere which had a municipal gasworks and a municipal swimming baths. That was a bit of a...
That sounds like the 70s.
Well, at least we got some children's something into it. Even if it's not TV.
Yeah.
Well, they were read on Jackanory sometimes.
All right, okay.
You've never heard of any of this?
I have heard of Jackanory. Of course I was alive when Jackanory was.
No, not Jackanory, the Professor Brainstorm.
No. No, I haven't heard of that. But I know what Jackanory is.
Yes. They'd still invented that when you were coming up into 90s, 80s.
I was born in 1978.
70s? Blimey.
Yeah.
I just think of you as very young, Ash.
Oh, I look great.
Yeah.
It's the beard.
It's just... I think it might be the very long runs.
Yes.
Whereas I look old and fat, possibly because of the complete absence of the same.
I'll take you out on a run.
And then I'll be dead. And how will that help?
A short run.
Yeah. Yes. Will you get some sweets or something and dangle them ahead of me? You'll get one of those poles, goes over the top of my head and then dangles down something in front of me that
we'll
I have to run towards.
We'll find what motivates you.
Yeah. Pretty simple, really.
So 2 monumental, magnificent things. Very Moorish things. Sorry, that was quite poor.
That downgraded it quite a lot at the end there, I felt.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I've got nothing.
No. Okay. Well, maybe we should just say...
I'll be content with monumental.
Monumental.
I feel like that's, if we went to Monument Valley, there would be our things.
There would be many monuments to our things in there.
Yes. We could go round and not allocate them between the monuments.
To allocate them too?
Well, in Monument Valley, there's lots of rock formations that look like monuments. So we could just go around and allocate.
People go and claim them.
We could allocate our things to the monuments. Yeah. And we would know. Oh, I like that one. That's the O1 safety card mashup with R1 DeepSeek.
I kept calling it Deep Geek for some reason. And Gwen was like, stop that.
Yeah, yes. I'm with Gwen.
It's like, but when you've read something and then it becomes that in your head.
Yes.
So yeah, I did that. I'm sorry.
We all forgive you.
Thank you. For now.
For now.
Okay. Right. Shall we say...
Email us.
Email us.
What's our email address, Ash?
Ian and Ash at whatalotofthings.com.
I congratulate you on the way you said that. That was
very correct.
Truly monumental performance.
Yeah.
It's the third monument on the left
as
you go into the valley.
And we have a LinkedIn group.
Which you should join.
Which you should join to keep up with the latest on What a Lot of Things.
We've also got on our Instagram an auto video maker. Did you know about this?
No.
I know you're never off Instagram, so I'm surprised you haven't noticed it.
Mm.
and Mastodon. So on Instagram, this thing called Headliner makes a little video of the first bit of each episode that we post and puts it on there.
So it needs to be good, a good, strong start.
Well, I keep meaning to go onto Headliner and change it to be the bit where, for that last episode, the bit where we ask you about going to meetings and having deadlines.
Right, okay.
I felt that was a good
Strong bit of content.
Strong bit of content, yes. I mean, not new.
No.
But good and strong.
No, it's still repetitive, but good and strong repetitive.
Yes. The kind of thing, it's comforting.
Yeah.
You think you know someone and you're right.
Yeah, exactly what they're going to say.
What could be better? What could be better?
You just look attentive.
Yes.
And off they go.
I look. Yeah. Yes. It's like a firework. You know, you light the blue touch paper, retire to a safe distance, and then look attentive. That's how fireworks.
That's how you enjoy fireworks.
Yes. Safely. I wouldn't want you to go off in an unsafe way.
No, that's true.
Okay.
Ah,
I say we've made it. It's only an hour and 27 minutes.
All right, that's not bad.
That's not an hour and a half yet, is it?
No, we should stop now.